Okay, guys, you saw the notice up there. This meeting is starting to be recorded. So no F words. That's car.
So Gary, nothing salty, right?
Correct. Which is tough for me to do.
Did you just use the word salty, Steve?
I sure did.
You're way cooler than I am.
April, we ready to go?
Yes, we are ready to go.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Good to see you. It's been a while. This is the Monday, 26 October 2020 meeting of the Sandag Military Working Group meeting. Before we begin the meeting, I'd like to ask April Patanik, who's going to serve as our clerk today, to confirm we have a quorum. So do we have a quorum, April?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And I would like to review the process for both the working group members as well as members of the public who are tuning in who wish to speak under public comment. For working group members, when you'd like to speak, please raise your hand on the icon in the Zoom control panel, or just put yourself on the video and wave your hand so April and I can see you. If you have control of your video and mute, so please turn on your camera when you'd like to speak, if at all possible, and I will call on you. Before we get going, do we have any questions, logistics questions right at this moment? Okay, April, let's go turn it over to you as the clerk here and go over the ground rules. So hopefully we can do a relatively smooth meeting here this morning. And thank you, everybody, first of all, for taking time out of your Monday morning to participate in the military working group.
Hi, everyone. So as noted on the cover page of today's meeting agenda, in addition to the emailed comments, the public may also provide live comments during today's meeting. To provide a verbal comment during the meeting, please join the Zoom meeting either by computer or phone. And at the time for public comments, members of the public are advised to raise your hand if you wish to provide comments. The raise hand feature can be found on the Zoom toolbar for those who are joining via computer, or by entering *9 for those who are joining by telephone. The chair will call on members of the public by name of those joining via computer and by the last 3 digits of your phone number if you're joining by telephone. All comments received prior to the close of the meeting will be made part of the meeting record. The instructions for providing live comments are page of today's meeting agenda, which can be accessed from the homepage of the Sandag's website, www.sandag.org. And as Kendall noted earlier today, the chat does not serve as a public comment. Thanks, Gary.
Okay, I see if I can do this. It's been a while, so I try to like to go around the Zoom meeting here for everybody to for the panelists who are members of the working group to reintroduce themselves. And I'll start off, Gary Bonelli, Commissioner, Port of San Diego, and the chair of the military working group. Rick, up to you, Rick.
I'm Rick Hudefeld. I'm the community liaison for the Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego.
Okay, Charles Mann, I know you're on the phone.
Yes, hi, Charles Main, Senior Transit Planner with North County Transit District.
Okay. Andy?
Andy Hall, City Manager of City Imperial Beach.
Blair?
Blair King, City Manager, Coronado.
Okay, I can't see anybody else right now, so keep introducing yourselves.
I'll go. This is Amy Heim. I'm the Grants and Policy Manager at the Port of San Diego. Good morning and happy Monday, everybody.
Rich Whipple, Deputy Director of Public Works, County of San Diego, and unfortunately I will have to leave at 10 for a Valley Fire meeting.
Good morning. Steve Chung, Navy Region Southwest and Curriculum Program Director. Thank you.
JJ?
Rodrigo Carrasco, Senior Transportation Planner, MTS.
Ted Galloway, Program Manager, City of San Diego.
Anybody else, April?
Good morning. This is Elisa Arias, Director of Integrated Transportation Planning at Sunday.
Morning, Elisa.
Good morning.
And good morning. This is Ryan Cohut. I'm a Sandag Strategic Projects Director with oversight over the Central Mobility Hub project.
Last call for working group members.
Steve or Mary Beth, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, I thought I just did earlier, April. Steve Chung, Navy Region Southwest and Curtin Program Director.
Hey, good
Everybody
morning,
able?
JJ Gamlin, Deputy Director of Marine Corps Installations West.
Morning, JJ. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you. I think that's everybody, April.
Okay, cool. I think we're ready to move on. Thank you.
Okay, so we're at that part of the agenda now where for non-agenda public comment. So if for any members of the public who are tuning in, if they would like to speak to the working group on something that's not on the agenda, but for the good of the military working group, are there any public speakers for non-agenda items? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move on to item number 2, which is approval of our last minutes, which was in June 8th, 2020. I'd like, if possible, a motion in a second for approval of the last meeting minutes.
Steve Chung here. Move to approve minutes.
Is there a second?
Rick Unifeld, I second.
Okay, Steve motion, Rick was the second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Are there any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, doing so far so good. Item number 3, member public comments. See, members of the public shall have the opportunity to address the work group on any issue of jurisdiction. Oh, I got that right. I'm sorry. I was jumping ahead of myself. So item number 3, again, any members of the public that want to comment that's not for something that's not on the agenda.
This is Tate Galloway, City of San Diego. I have a comment.
Okay, Jake, go ahead. Fire away.
Sure. Just wanted everybody to know that we are starting work on the Barrio Logan Community Plan update. As folks may remember, that had been a controversial issue, which was repealed by the voters from the city of San Diego. We have been working together with the planning group as well as the shipbuilding industries and the community at large. We will be discussing and coordinating at a future date with the Community Plan and Liaison office at Navy Base San Diego. So just wanted to give that as an FYI for people to know we're started at.
Okay, appreciate that. I see Mario also has got his hand up from Caltrans.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, thank you for having us here and allowing us to speak. We just wanted to talk a little bit about the MOU that was signed between the port, Sandag, and Caltrans. And this is a continuation of the partnership we established in 2008 with the port access projects. And this is going to lead on joint efforts to, one, begin the environmental document phase for Besta Street, 32nd Street improvements in Harbor Drive in Maine, looking into the concept of operations or taking to the next step the Harbor 2.0 vision. And it's just a collaborative effort of the 3 agencies that we would be including all other agencies in the area eventually to start working. And I think the big first push is going to be that in November, we will begin the environmental document phase for, like I mentioned, the Besta Street and Harbor and 32nd Street. So we just wanted to comment on that, let you know that we're starting to work in November. So we'll be reaching out to a lot of your agencies for collaboration on this effort.
Thank you, Mario. I appreciate you. You've always been a step ahead of me. I was going to have that in my chairman's remarks. So this is important not only to National City and San Diego and our United States Navy, and the Coast Guard now is going to have a presence down in National City. It also impacts the people who commute around the bay from Chula Vista, Imperial Beach, and Coronado. So it's an important study to get underway, and hopefully with the multimodal, multi-jurisdiction U.S. government military effort, it's one of those projects that can hopefully get some light with the federal government and eventually get funded. We can get moving on with this, and it'll be hopefully folded into Sandag's regional transportation vision. Okay, other member comments on anything? Member comments I'm looking for. Okay, I have one more while I'm talking in case you think of something. The ports put out for public review until the middle of next month our Port Master Plan update. Essentially, this is the equivalent to a city's general plan or a community plan in the unincorporated area of the county. It's about 6 years in the making. The final draft is out there. It's essentially a vision policy statement for land and water uses around the 31 miles of bayfront that we control, and touches on our 5 member cities, and also looks at the water off of Imperial Beach by the Tijuana River Valley. So if you're interested in that, or any members of the public would like to comment on the Port Master Plan update, the easiest way to get a hold of it is go to the website at portofsandiego.org/PMPU, Port Master Plan Update. So that's out there for public comment. The goal there is to finalize that by the first quarter of next year and get the programmatic EIR out to accompany that Port Master Plan update, with the ultimate goal of getting into the California Coastal Commission by the end of 2021. Other comments folks might have? Okay, I'm moving on to item number 4. Moving right along under the chair's report. Our military multimodal access strategy garnered some accolades recently. The Women's Transportation Seminar recognized the work of the working group, and in doing the strategy, we were recognized by the Women's Transportation Seminar. And just as an aside, Sandag's head planner, Colleen Clemenson, was named the Woman of the Year by the Women's Transportation Seminar for 2020. So congratulations to Colleen, and thanks for the diligent work of all the working group members to get that multimodal access study completed. On another good news note, the Federal Office of Economic Adjustment has granted Sandag almost $800,000 for funding for the partnership between in our military region, the collaboration we're doing. And Steve Chung, I'd like to call on you if you could talk a little bit about the OEA grant and what that might mean for our San Diego region.
Great, thank you, Chairman. Essentially, this was a first of its kind that the Office of Economic Adjustment initiated here to essentially evaluate our military installations' resilience as it relates to mission readiness, climate change impacts, and other types of storm events. That includes transportation networks. Earlier this year, the Navy made a request to OEA for grant consideration, which was subsequently approved and issued to Sandag to initiate this effort. So our intent, our hopes is to support Sandag, their team, working with the military working group to evaluate everything from transportation network system, some of the corridor analysis that's currently ongoing, and attempt to fill some of the gaps that are occurring and addressed in areas such as the South Bay. So we're happy that Sandag has taken upon them to go ahead and work towards and select a vendor, which is currently underway. And our understanding here is that the effort's going to start sometime in November and conclude sometime summer 2021. So we're very excited and looking forward to supporting Sandag.
Okay, I see Blair King's got his hand raised. Blair.
Yes, Steve mentioned South Bay. And maybe, Steve, you can talk a little bit more about that scope of work.
Well, I think the scope of work, since this is a Sandag-led initiative, we are participants, Blair, from our 3 naval installations. So when we're talking South Bay, it's a very broad area that's going to incorporate areas such as Naval Base San Diego, Imperial Beach, Point Loma, and Naval Base Coronado. So our intent and our objective here is to have all our installations support this initiative with support from Navy Region Southwest.
And Steve, I'm a little bit in the sort of in the cloud here, if you will. Can you give me an example of a product? I mean, the grant. What's it going to? I mean, what's going to be one of the final products? What are we going to get out of this? What's the region going to get out of this?
Well, I think from our perspective, one of the items, and there are several others since it is a joint initiative, is how do we begin to memorialize some of the protocols and processes of many things that are ongoing, such as communications, but also more importantly, we have multiple other initiatives that are currently underway by Sandag. Clearly, it may not cover all things that the Navy would like to see covered. So we are hoping that as part of this OEA grant, that it can fill some of the voids and gaps that may not be addressed as part of the other Sandag initiatives, such as the corridor analysis that are currently underway.
Okay, and maybe to help us all out, what was raised by Blair is once we get a scope of work drafted, it might be good, April, for you to send that out to the members of the military working group so they can take a cut at it.
Yep, I'll send it out after this meeting. And then we also plan on providing this group with updates at our regular military working group meetings as well.
Cool. Okay, thank you. Okay, just for your information, tomorrow on October 27th, the California Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Project will bring electric vehicle charging incentives to San Diego County. Businesses, commercial properties, multifamily residences, and local government facilities will be eligible to apply for incentives for the purchase and installation of new electric vehicle infrastructure. Eligible applicants may receive up to $80,000 per direct charger, fast charger, and up to $6,000 per level 2 connector, whatever a level 2 connector is. Rebates are expected to go quickly, and April has sent out information via email about this. So if your particular jurisdiction is interested in looking at electric vehicle infrastructure, I'd make sure you get in contact with April so you can get your oar in the water, if you will, and get funding for that type of infrastructure. Mario talked about Harbor Drive. Just of note, I think most of you already know that the SDMAC, the San Diego Military Advisory Council, released their 2020 Military Economic Impact Report, which can be found on their website at sdmac.org. The last item I have under my chair's report here is today an overview of the 2020 Sandag Regional Plan and Big 5 moves will be presented, and there'll be a follow-up for opportunity for discussion. This Thursday, the 29th of October, from 4 to 5 p.m., there'll be a joint working group meeting where we'll share our discussion and feedback with the rest of the Sandag working groups. There's probably more than a dozen Sandag working groups, and sort of this is a joint meeting to get everybody together and listen to feedback about the vision Sandag has for future transportation. And hopefully everyone should have received a calendar hold for that date. Okay, I'm going to pause there because I'm finished with my chair's report. Any questions, or is there any public comment regarding the chair's report item? Nicole Burgess, you've got good 2 minutes, Nicole.
Good morning, Gary Bonelli, Chair, and the rest of the military working group. I'd love to put my camera on, but I don't think I get to. And I appreciate the moment to chat and talk and be part of the conversation. Steve Chung, thank you. The OEA grant sounds wonderful, and I look forward to hopefully participating in that effort. And then I just wanted to hopefully get maybe contact from Mario Orso from Caltrans and comment just quickly on the Harbor 2.0 study. I just want to make sure that we're really have a good plan as the active transportation network to the east. I know Troyes Creek and some of those little arterial roads to the east across the 5 are only classified as class 3, maybe class 2. We really need a protected, safe network. And then just lastly, as the study gets on the way, the OEA grant, it would be wonderful. I was trying to find out information of how many residents actually come from County District 4 from the military to the bases. So, and then the other way I was thinking is maybe we can have Sandag create a bike access shed. So how many of your residents live within 10 miles of the bases? Because that's all a wonderful e-bike adventure. So I'll keep my comment short. Thank you. I'll look forward to participating. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burgess. And there's contact information in the chat, and Jacqueline Appleton from Caltrans is also available to reach out to you. Okay, seeing no other public comment, let me do this. Yeah, okay, good. Caltrans is saying, Nicole, they're gonna give you Mario's information, so you'll get that forwarded to you. Okay, item number 5, the Central Mobility Hub Navy Old Town Complex Revitalization Update. Ryan Kohut's going to bring us up to the latest and greatest. I think, Ryan, if I'm correct, the mayor of the city of San Diego and Sandag executive director went back to Washington, D.C. to visit folks and the Pentagon folks. So if you can bring us up to speed on the Central Mobility Hub, I'd appreciate that. Ryan.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Yes, as Chair Bonelli stated, the mayor of San Diego and Hassan were back in DC on October 8th. They had a scheduled meeting with the SECNAV. Unfortunately, the secretary was unable to attend that meeting, but we did meet with the chief of staff and got to really tell him everything that wonderful that's happening here in San Diego, most notably the Central Mobility Hub project. Admiral Bolivar and Executive Director Stuyvesant were also present. You know, we just talked about the cooperation between Navy Region Southwest, NAVFAC, and Sandag and the city, and how we've been working together to try to incorporate the Central Mobility Hub into a Navy-led redevelopment of the Navor property, their Old Town campus. The Navy and the secretary, the chief of staff, was very supportive and reiterated the secretary's ongoing commitment to the success of that effort. We really left that meeting positive that, you know, DC is watching and you know, really wants to see this effort succeed. Beyond the DC trip, the other big accomplishment this month was the passage of AB 2731, which is a state CEQA streamlined clarification bill that outlined a pathway for the Navy to do their redevelopment project, you know, with their federal property, and clarified how state law would apply to the redevelopment of that property, and then provided some CEQA streamlining to the Central Mobility Hub, the transportation element of that project. So that was a huge success. Assembly Member Gloria sponsored the bill, co-sponsored by State Senator Pro Tem Tony Atkins, and to get the legislature to see what's special about this project and what it can do toward for cooperation between our region and the United States Navy and Marine Corps was just very impressive and something we're all very proud of. Beyond that, the coordination is continuing between Navy Region Southwest, NAVFAC, and Sandag staff on the Navy's ongoing environmental impact statement that they're producing under NEPA for the Old Town campus redevelopment. And we're also going to be getting out there in the next couple of months with the Central Mobility Hub area congestion, comprehensive multimodal congestion management plan, which is a element of the 5 Big Moves regional plan to, really figure out how a central mobility hub would operate and really connect not only this area of downtown and the Midway area, but to the entire region. So we're really excited about that. So that's, yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for that update. Before I go to member comments or questions, are there members of the public that would like to speak to this item? Okay, I've got, I'm showing the first name, Mandy.
Yes, I just wanted to ask a question about the earlier portion of that conversation. What day did the mayor go to DC with Hassan?
The mayor was in DC on October 8th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we met in the Pentagon with the chief of staff.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
Are there other public comments on the Central Mobility Hub from the public comment? Okay, are there questions or comments from our working group members? Any working group member like to address this? Steve, I guess a question from me, trying to connect the dots. It'll be interesting to see when the city of San Diego voters vote on the Midway district, the height limit, and see how that may or may not impact the development of the Central Mobility Hub. That's good connecting the dots there. Should be interesting. My specific question, Steve, would be under NEPA, when do you think NEPA will be completed? What's the guesstimation on when that will be done?
The last schedule I saw, they were still tracking for sometime in 2021, but Brian may have some additional updates and info on that. I'm not as close to the NEPA process, Chairman.
Yeah, the last I heard was, early summer 21.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Other member, I see a hand raised. Muska, is a public? Is there a Muska? I don't know where that came. Okay. Other member.
Hi, actually, this is Muska. Sorry, I just got unmuted. This is Muska with Naval Base Point Loma. I just wanted to provide a quick schedule on the NEPA process. We are anticipating the draft EIS this January, February timeframe, and the record of decision will be, like Ryan mentioned, sometimes this summer.
Thank you so much for chiming in. Thank you. Helpful. Okay. Other working group member comments on this item? Last call for this one. Okay, we're going to move on. Item number 6 is the Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Program Overview. Rachel Kennedy from Sandag will update us on this, and we'll get through that. Good morning, Rachel. Good to see you.
Good morning, Gary. Good to see you and the working group members as well. My name is Rachel Kennedy. I am the Corridor Planning Manager for Sandag, and I wanted to share some information about the Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plans with the Military Working Group today. If you can move to the next slide, April. So to provide some information, about what are these comprehensive multimodal corridor plans, or as we often refer to them as CMCPs. So these are integrated multimodal transportation corridor plans, and they align with state and federal goals and help to make Sandag more competitive for funding. With the complete corridors that are called for as one of the 5 big moves in the regional plan, these CMCPs help to provide details on these individual corridors that we are looking at and look at different combinations of multimodal transportation solutions. So they look at elements such as highways, transit, active transportation improvements, how things interface with the local streets and roads, and kind of take a little bit of of a deeper dive into specific areas of our region. The CMCPs are suggested by the California Transportation Commission in order for SANDAG to be competitive for Senate Bill 1 and other state and federal funds. Move to the next slide. So to provide a little bit of background, here in the San Diego region, Caltrans, working with partners, developed the North Coast Corridor Plan a few years ago, which we kind of think as one of our first generation CMCPs. So when this document was put together, it was sort of, a little bit more unique in its time, in that it not only examined improvements on the I-5 freeway itself, but also looked at improvements in parallel corridors. So it also included improvements on the Lausanne Rail Corridor, which includes service with the coaster and Amtrak, as well as freight rail. It looked at active transportation improvements within that corridor, and also interfacing with the local roadway. So the CMCPs that we're, Caltrans and SANDAG are working on collaboratively right now with our local jurisdiction partners, kind of take that even a step further. Next slide, please. So this slide here shows the complete corridor concept. So many of you have probably seen some of the presentations that we've had on the 2021 regional plan that's currently under development. And one of the 5 big moves is the complete corridors. So if we take a look at the image that's included on this slide and kind of move from left to right, you see here within the highway, this isn't just a normal standard highway. It features a number of different elements that can change throughout the day to suit the needs of the travelers at given times. With the dynamic lanes, you might have lanes that are geared towards carpools, lanes that can be used for transit. During busy times, you might allow traffic to travel in the shoulder. In addition to lanes that could be for connected vehicles. As technology progresses in the future, we anticipate having vehicles that can communicate with each other and maybe travel a little closer together. And then lanes for the general public as well. As you move towards the right within the image, you can see kind of towards the middle of the screen that we have high-speed transit that's shown kind of underground here, providing fast and easy connections throughout the region. You'll see in the middle there in the kind of lighter green, bike and pedestrian paths to provide for easy connections for those who are using their bikes. Additionally, as you move sort of into the sidewalk area, we are also looking at mobility hubs within our plan, which bring together a number of these different elements, providing access to transit, to services, such as lockers where you can pick up items that you might have ordered, such as groceries or an Amazon package. And then moving into the local roadway there, you can see a variety of modes interfacing neighborhood electric vehicles, buses, private cars, pedestrians. So with the complete corridors concept, that's something that we'll be looking at within the comprehensive multimodal corridor plans to look at how all these different movements can interface together and provide quality transportation and connections for users. Next slide, please. So on this map here, we have 2 phases of CMCPs that SANDAG and Caltrans will be developing over the next 5 years. So in September of 2019, the SANDAG Board of Directors allocated funds to prepare CMCPs for 12 corridors. And currently we are working right now, moving kind of from the top to the bottom of the map. You can see the North County Corridor, which includes the Sprinter 78 and portions of 76. The San Vicente Corridor, which is shown in the orange, which follows along State Route 67. Moving down to the green area, that's our Coast Canyons and Trails CMCP study area, which includes the State Route 52 and trolley corridor there. Moving down to the blue area, that's our Central Mobility Hub and Connection CMCP, which includes the Midway area, communities of Point Loma, downtown, and the San Diego Airport. And then our last corridor on this map, shown in the purple, that's our South Bay to Sorrento corridor, which includes the Blue Line trolley, I-5, 805, and the future Purple Line trolley. Next slide, please. So in addition to the phase 1 CMCPs, we also have another phase 2 that is planned in future years. Most of these will be happening in the fiscal years 2023 and 24. Next slide, please. So with our 5 study areas that we're currently looking at, we have a number of different military partners that we will be looking to collaborate with. So all of our study areas either include within the study area military facilities, bases, or military housing, or are adjacent to these facilities. And April has worked with some of you to provide us contacts within the different military entities to provide liaisons to these study areas. So I know a few of you have already been starting to work with the different CMCP teams, and additional outreach will be getting to our military partners. Additionally, as we start to move through the process of developing the different corridor plans, we'll be bringing information back to the military working group to seek your input.
And Rachel, let me stop you. Take a breath for a second here.
Sure.
So when you look at this slide here, part of the OEA grant that will the funds from that will help put together the look at the seams and gaps, and again looking at how we can maximize the mobility to and from the military installations around the region. That's part of the OEA grant, the way I perceive it.
That's correct. And the CMCP teams will be collaborating with the staff as well, who are working on the OEA grants. So we're looking forward to that as well.
Okay, good, thank you. And as each of these corridors is developed, each of the corridors will be brought to the military working group.
Yes, so we are, the different plans are sort of in different phases of development right now. Everyone's in an earlier stage, gathering existing data, looking at existing conditions. And I'll talk a little bit more about our schedule and then opportunities to bring information back to the military working group.
Okay.
If you could do the next slide, please. So I wanted to share just a couple of examples from our North County team to provide the military working group with a little bit of information about some of the things that the teams are starting to look at. So with each of the CMCP teams, they're looking into their current conditions, current deficiencies, and opportunities within their corridors. This is a summary of our some of the deficiencies that the North County corridor has identified so far. They've been looking at challenges that their corridor has with cut through traffic, since there are sort of limited east-west connections on the local roadways, gaps in the local arterial network, challenges with connections for bike and pedestrians. They've been working to identify bottlenecks on the freeway, challenges that exist with the more limited public transit network that's currently operating, and first and last mile connections. Next slide, please. They've also started to take a look at travel patterns, looking at Camp Pendleton. So here this slide shows a map that they've put together, which includes Camp Pendleton and the surrounding areas, and they've been starting to take a look at travel patterns near to Camp Pendleton. 18% of those morning peak period trips are happening within about a 3-mile radius. 45% of the trips they're going to Camp Pendleton are within a 7-mile radius, and then about 10% of those trips going through the gate there at Camp Pendleton come from outside the county. So this is just an example of what some of the teams are starting to do to understand the travel patterns that are occurring within their study areas, and also looking at some of the military facilities and travel to and from those facilities, keeping in mind that within these corridors that you all are important job locations, and it's important to keep these travel patterns in consideration as we look at existing conditions and later in developing transportation solutions. Next slide, please. So within the CMCP program, there are a number of different policy areas and planning considerations that have been outlined by the California Transportation Commission and in state and federal guidelines. So as I mentioned earlier, these are multimodal studies. We're looking at all of the different transportation modes: roadways, transit, bikes, pedestrians, goods movement, local roadways, and how they can work together to provide for efficient travel for people and goods. Additionally, we will need to be looking at how these plans can help to improve air quality and public health, help to minimize impacts to existing residents, helping to serve low-income and disadvantaged communities that are within our corridor areas, and to also provide opportunities for economic development and goods movement. Next slide, please. So this slide here provides like a high level schedule for the CMCP developments. As I mentioned earlier, our 5 teams are working right now to gather their existing conditions data, dive into their opportunities and constraints for their different study areas, and also to start their stakeholder engagement. So we have local jurisdiction partners, our transit agencies, military partners, and others that each of the teams are reaching out for their different study areas, and to start that dialogue about elements that will be examined in more detail. Through the fall time period, we're having data analysis. Our different teams are getting their consultants on board who will be assisting with the study. And we're also sharing information excuse me, sorry, on the different data components with our transportation committee through the end of this calendar year and into January. In the fall and winter timeframe, the teams will be conducting community outreach, sharing the different elements of their plans that have been developed and getting feedback. And then we'll be looking to develop the draft CMCP plans in spring and summer, and finalizing those plans in summer and fall of 2021. So today's presentation was sort of a higher level program level presentation, but as we start to gather more data for each of the individual corridors, we'll be looking to come back to the military working group to provide you more detailed information on the individual corridors, particularly those with significant bases, installation, and military facilities in them. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or take any comments that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Very comprehensive report. Before I go to member comments or questions, let me ask, are there any members of the public that would like to address item number 6? I see a hand. Okay. I know Andy Hall's got a question, but I'm going to wait for see any members of the public. Okay, I got 2 hands up here. Let me see.
Did you unmute me?
Nicole Burgess. Okay, Nicole, 2 minutes for you, Nicole.
I just wanted to say thank you to Rachel Kennedy. I love the slide that showed from Camp Pendleton, 18% are within the 3-mile radius, and another 45% are within 7-mile. I mean, imagine if we had the safe network, the people that could actually go and have an active commute to the base to and from. That's 63% of our people, and that allows so much congestion relief, health, everything, safety, awesome. So thank you for highlighting that, Rachel.
Thank you, Ms. Burgess. Okay, I'm going over to the city manager of Imperial Beach, Andy Hall.
Good morning, Rachel. Thank you for your presentation. I was just curious about how the corridors are defined. In Imperial Beach, we have a situation where part of Naval Base Coronado is actually separated from the rest of the base by the city of Imperial Beach. And some of the roads and corridors leading there are not traditional transportation corridors. One of those being, for instance, 13th Street in Imperial Beach is essentially just a 3-lane residential road, but it does play an important connection between two parts of the military base. So I was just wondering if the definition is expansive enough to include some of those what would not traditionally be identified as corridors.
Sure. So within the map that I showed earlier in the slide, Imperial Beach is part of the South Bay to Sorrento corridor, which is our largest corridor of the corridor studies. And you know, we can take I've taken a note on your comment, and we can verify if that corridor is included within the study area. But we are trying to take a more holistic approach. We have defined each of the different study areas, but we do recognize that there are obviously roadways or other facilities that are connecting into those study areas. We kind of had to make the map with a line somewhere, but we're cognizant that there are obviously connections that are occurring in and out of those study areas that we also want to be aware of. So thank you for your comment, and I can verify with our project manager and our map here that that's included in that study area, and if not, the connection that provides. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, next I'm going to Rick Hunnefeld.
I know that we're going to go into more detail as we look at each one of the each one of the corridors individually, but we've really got to be careful of how we interpret some of this information. Before we decide that all the Marines at Camp Pendleton need to ride their bikes to work or take public transit, we may want to look a little bit more detail at that chart that you had just had up a second ago that shows that mileage. Note that that's mileage to the front gate. Camp Pendleton is 128 square miles with camps all over it. So very few of those people, outside of a very small command element and an AV training battalion, are within reasonable proximity to that front gate or that start point for that mileage. Additionally, don't forget that our sailors, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, some of them are significant numbers of them are coming in and going out at times which frankly do not lend themselves well to alternatives, arriving before dawn, leaving after dark, that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm a fan of the effort, and I think we're going to make some meaningful progress on this issue. But again, we've got to be careful of how we interpret some of this stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Next, I'm going to the city manager of Coronado, Blair King. Can't hear you, Blair.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Just expanding on Andy's comments, and I was going to save this for, I wanted to hear the discussion on the 5 big moves, but I've heard this quarter presentation before, and I've heard the 5 big moves before. But my question is, how is this going to alleviate congestion at the gates on the military bases? Since that is one of the big concerns, especially for Coronado Imperial Beach, is what I think Andy was getting at. How is all this effort going to alleviate that congestion? Because we're seeing that build up more and more.
So, the operation of the gate itself is not within the jurisdiction of SANDAG, obviously, but we are we are looking at different transportation options that, can serve the gate area, and trying to look at, having different elements or transportation options. So you may not have every single person arriving to the gate in the same mode at the same time in the same way that they currently are. With Coronado, recently at our transportation committee meeting, Councilmember Sankey from Coronado actually proposed, and it was acted upon to move Coronado into the South Bay to Sorrento study area to make sure that we're having really good examination of the connections with the Silver Strand and the South Bay to Coronado. But previous to that, it was included in the Central Mobility Hub. CMCP, which I've been serving as the project manager for that study. And we've been working with planning staff from the city of Coronado, as well as partners from the Navy already to discuss some of the different potential options and strategies for providing more transportation options. We're well aware of some of the current challenges, particularly on the local roadways within Coronado. So I think, some of that discussion will be happening further in the study process. We know that our military installations have some unique travel needs, challenges, and opportunities, and look forward to working with the various teams through the process. So thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chairman, if I could expand a little bit more.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Blair.
Okay. If I could expand a little bit more, the point is that some of the military bases are not on the traditional major corridors that SANDAG now is focusing on, or traditionally has focused on. And as a military working group, I just want to make sure that we keep local congestion right at the forefront of these efforts. And I've heard a lot of comments about SANDAG working with the Navy. That's great. It's not a criticism. But I want to make sure that myself, Andy, Tate, Brad, the cities that are actually impacted, that we have equal standing. I know the bigger groups like to get together with a big group hug for the really big guys, but it's the little cities that are really handling the bulk of this congestion. And as the military working group of SANDAG, this group was formed so we could keep that agenda up there. So I want to put that out there. I'll probably make the same comment when we talk about the big 5 moves, that I hope, as long as I'm on this committee, I'm going to keep talking about local congestion. It's got to be a SANDAG priority, not to diminish anything from the importance of looking at the big corridor, but we got to keep local congestion there, or Imperial Beach. And I know the point Andy is making and the point I'm making is local congestion. We want that to be a priority. And it's great that we're going to have these beautiful, we're anticipating the future for the major corridors, but most of that traffic ends up on the base through a local street.
I hear you loud and clear, Blair. So to put a finer point on it too, as SANDAG brings forth these specific corridor plans, as a working group, we really need to, sharpen the pencil and do our homework to make our points.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Other comments from members of the working group? I see no
Chairman,
other.
I wondered, this is Colleen Clemenson, and I wondered if I could also just expand on Blair's comment, because it's really important. And I'm glad you brought that up. And Rachel, thank you for the great presentation. So I think you're all aware that the 5 big moves is the big regional look. Then this drills in a little deeper. And one of the things that is in the 5 big moves that hasn't been there before is the look at local streets and roads, and the relationship of local streets and roads to the highway system, to the transit system, because we need to look at all of that as we're trying to address the transportation challenges in the region. Ultimately, what will come out of these CMCP studies will be kind of like a package of transportation improvements. And I think we've got a big leg up because of all the work that's already been done with the base access strategy that's already identified some of the strategies that could be employed here. So you're absolutely right on, Blair. And this is where I think we're also going to continue to press on Steve to help us get additional funding like OEA grant funds that can help us even dig deeper into some of these things. So thank you for raising that. We need to work together at the, national, statewide, regional, and local level to address these issues.
Okay, any other comments from working members? Comments or questions regarding this? If not, I'm going to move on to item number 7. Hearing or seeing none, Okay, I'm going to move on to item number 7, which is Assembly Bill 617, Community Air Protection Program, Portside Environmental Justice Neighborhoods, Community Emission Reduction Plan update. And for that, we're going to the very expertise of Kathy Kean from the San Diego County Air Pollution Control District. Don't let us down, Kathy.
No pressure, Gary. Thanks. All right. I'm going to try to start off right away, try and share my screen so you guys can see the presentation. I'm hoping, select the window. Oops. Hang on. Can you guys see, it should say APCD Community Air Protection Program on there?
No.
Dang it. All right, let's try. Oh, hang on. Let's try this. How about now?
It's coming in. Yeah, we're good.
All right. Yay. Hurdle number 1. We're over. Great. Thank you, Gary. My name is Kathy Kean. I'm with the San Diego Air Pollution Control District. And we've been asked to give a little presentation today about our Community Air Protection Program, our AB 617 effort. The goal of this program is to reduce exposure to in communities most impacted by air pollution. And we're looking at monitoring and emission reduction strategies to achieve that goal. Let's see if I can, oh, yay, the slides move. Awesome. All right, so the way this program is set up at the state is that they're targeting communities that are that have a combination of factors. They're impacted by air pollution, and then they have a susceptibility or vulnerability to those air pollution impacts. So the state puts together a score called the Cal EnviroScreen score that looks at several factors and gives each census tract in the state a score. And as you can see from this map, the communities of Barrio Logan, Logan Heights, National City score particularly high in this measure, and so they were selected as a community to pilot this sort of work to see what we can do to really reduce emissions and impacts to residents that live in those communities. The purpose of the program is to improve the air quality in those portside communities. And so we're looking at several strategies to do that. This is a different effort than we usually do at the Air District. Well, usually we look at things on a much more regional level. Here we're really drilling down and focusing on what's happening in those specific communities. And we're doing that not just through our own efforts, but through building community partnerships, really increasing our public participation and engagement and how we're having those discussions, really taking a deep dive to try and understand the challenges that those communities are facing and pulling people together to develop solutions, and then hopefully monitoring our progress on making all of those things happen. So part of that effort is to put together what's called a community emission reduction plan. And that is a whole series of things that we're looking at. We're looking at what kind of metrics should we use to measure progress? What kind of enforcement plan should we be putting together to be looking at emissions in those communities? What are the goals and targets and reduction strategies that we really want to focus on? It's got a 5-year horizon, so it's kind of a short-term plan, but also allows us to push forward some more forward-thinking options. And then as all of that is based on kind of the technical studies that we've done to evaluate how what's happening in those communities and what those objectives ought to be. As I mentioned before, we're really doing a little bit of a different process for our community outreach and involvement of the communities. For this effort, we've actually put together a community steering committee that's made up of local businesses, community groups, residents who live in the community, and then of course the large players like the military operations that are happening in and near those communities, and the port operations that are happening near in those communities. And so, as you could see, remember when we used to get to meet in person? So this is a picture of our one of our meetings, and we are happy to have representation from the Navy on that steering committee, and really welcome the support and input that we've gotten up to now in this process. As part of the community emission reduction plan, we looked at what are the causes of, what are the sources of air pollution in the community right now. And so we're seeing that stationary sources are a small but significant part of what's happening in those communities. Off-road, diesel particulate matter in particular is a concern in this community. That's what is forcing those CalEnviro numbers to be so high for these neighborhoods, is really the diesel particulate matter emissions that are happening, mostly from on-road sources, but some from our stationary sources as well. And then area sources, all those things that are very diffuse through the neighborhoods are also a significant factor in the emissions in this region. So what we did is we put together a draft community emission reduction plan. We've been working on it for 6 months I mean, we've been doing this work for about 1.5 years at least. But now we're coming to the point where we're really putting together a plan for how we're going to address what's happening in that community. This is the table of contents that you can see on the slide right now. As you could see, it goes into a lot of different kinds of details about what the community emission reduction plan has. We're really focusing, and the community is really focusing on the actions and strategies. So that's what I'm going to talk about for the rest of this presentation, but you're certainly welcome to go. The plan is available online on our website if you want to dig into more about the technical assessment, the emission inventory data, all of that sort of thing. Those are available on our website. So let's see. So we put together, there's going to be about 4 slides here of a series of strategies. The district has come up with strategies, and then the steering committee that was put together really took the lead, and we're so thrilled to have their work and support to help us come up with strategies that are important, that are effective, that make a meaningful difference. So these on the screen that you're seeing right now are some strategies that the district came up with around the areas of outreach, our incentive programs, trying to tailor our incentive programs to really address what's happening in that Portside community, looking at potential new rules and what our options are around that, and then how we're doing enforcement in that community and see how we can increase compliance rates for operations that are happening in those particular neighborhoods. But we also put together those 3 steering committee subcommittees. So we have a truck subcommittee, we have a working waterfront subcommittee, and a land use subcommittee. And I'm going to show you those strategies now. The truck subcommittee, trucks are a huge issue for the residents and businesses in the community. That's the most visible kind of indicator of pollution, and the community's really struggled with things like creating a truck route and addressing truck emissions, truck idling in the community. So this community put together a series of strategies, including promoting zero emission trucks, potentially doing a pilot project, figuring out how we develop infrastructure that supports those zero emission trucks, figuring out how we're going to pay for them through incentives and fees, looking at enforcement for those mobile sources for those trucks. Are they idling? Are they idling legally? Are they complying with the truck routes, things like that? And then making sure that the burden of all of these efforts is proportionate and fair, particularly to the smaller trucking companies and the driver owner operators who typically have had difficulty accessing resources and figuring out how to fit into that whole strategy. So we want to keep an eye on that as well. For our working waterfront, thank you to the port. Larry Hoffreiter was the chair of this committee, and the port has really been out front in helping us try and figure out strategies and what we should be doing for the working waterfront. And so we're looking at strategies that address vessel emissions through the port and PESHA. We're looking at zero emission equipment for kind of cargo handling equipment and equipment that's coming in and out for port operations and for Navy operations. We're looking at some training opportunities. The port doesn't necessarily control the operations of those port tenants. And so getting the word out to folks who are working on the waterfront, making sure that they understand the purpose and reason behind the actions that we're taking. And then working with Sandag and the shipyards for making that connection between the port operations and what ends up happening on the roadways in and around the neighborhoods. We also have a committee about land use strategies, because we know that air quality is intimately tied to where we put things and how we make our land use decisions. So that subcommittee came up with a series of strategies that that are not necessarily within the power for the Air District to do on our own. We really have to work in strong partnership with all of our military partners and jurisdictional partners and community partners to figure out how, if there's opportunity to make changes and help with air quality in those communities. So looking at, is there an opportunity for buffer zones through that Barrio Logan community plan update, for example? Can we figure out ways to provide indoor air filtration programs and landscape and vegetative buffers? Some of these overlap, of course, with the enforcement, we're looking at those strategies cover several different areas. Looking at neighborhood resiliency and housing stability and making sure that we're providing, it's not just exposure, but also how people are able to handle any potential exposures. And then improving transportation efficiencies, really looking at the options, particularly in the Harbor Drive mobility study, to figure out which of those strategies really work well to help us address the air quality issues that we're seeing in the community. So we put together the SERP, we put together those strategies, and then we had a couple of workshops virtually on Zoom and Teams to kind of get community from feedback and businesses. You could see, I'm not going to read you this whole list, but we had 45 members of the public over the 2 workshops that really provided some really good input about what they wanted to see in this program. So there was a lot of support for zero emission kind of strategies, connecting employment and registering, an emphasis on us coordinating with the military and the port to make sure that the things that we're doing we're all going in the same direction to try and work together rather than in separate silos. I did want to update this slide. We had heard from the Navy that there are things that are happening at the shipyards already, and that the Navy is already committed to do to help address these air quality concerns. And we really appreciate the folks at the Navy helping us figure out what these strategies are and articulating them and making sure that we can include them in the plan. So thank you very much for your help with that. The Navy's already doing a lot of work around reducing emissions from ships that are at berth now. There's a lot of cold ironing that's happening and shore powering, making sure that we're reducing VOCs from ship repair activities and reducing emissions from the commute, like we were just talking about with those corridors, to figure out what the strategies are to help reduce emissions and congestion around those operations. So we took the emission reduction plan to the Community Steering Committee on October 13th, and we had some substantive discussion about the plan and some really good feedback. They've added a couple of actions around advocacy and incentive support, figuring out how we're going to do edits to this emission reduction plan. And basically, so you all know, this is a 2-phased approach that we're taking with the emission reduction plan. Technically, the state has a deadline of December for this work, with COVID and the associated impacts and the difficulties of doing this kind of extensive community outreach. We've gotten a little bit of a reprieve from the state. So we're going to send them an update in December on what we're calling our phase 1 strategies, those strategies that we know are ready to go and can happen immediately, and we'll begin working on those. And then some of the other strategies, what we're calling our phase 2 strategies, are strategies that require more coordination between us and the city, or us and the military, or us and a whole group of people. We know that these are not simple strategies or easy strategies, and those are going to take a little longer. And so we're still working through those. Those we expect to happen in May of 2021. We'll have figured out a lot of that and be able to do a final community mission reduction plan to ARB in May, we hope, of 2021. So, and that's, I apologize for the tiny font on this, but basically this is a timeline of what we've been doing. The community was selected by CARB as a community to focus on back in December of 2019, which gave us a year to work on this emission reduction plan. We're planning to go to our board of supervisors on November 18th of this year with the draft SERP as an update and their blessing for the phase 1 strategies that we can start carrying out now. We'll provide that update to the Air Resources Board in January. We're hoping to go with a final approval in May, and then we'll have 5 years to really implement the strategies and pull it all together. If you want more information, it is available on our website. You can go to our Community Air Protection Program section of our website and click on the Portside Community Mission Reduction Plan, and the documents are all available there if you're insomniac and need some light reading. And we have a contact person. Currently, it's Stephen Amberg, who's working with us at the district for the plan. We also have a new person, Domingo Vigil, who some of you may know from his other work, coming to help spearhead the AB 617 program for the district. So with that, I'll open it up to questions and comments. And thank you so much for all of the help that you've all provided so far.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. Thanks for literally covering the waterfront. Before I go to working group member comments or questions, any members of the public would like to speak to this item? Okay, I'm going to turn to Andy Hall from Imperial Beach.
Good morning, Kathy. Thank you for the presentation.
Morning.
I know that you guys are typically looking at CO2 emissions and particulate matter and whatnot. I would encourage you to contact Scripps Institute at UCSD. They're currently gathering a lot of air quality information about the chemicals that are coming across the border in the water and becoming aerialized, and how much that is impacting the air quality in the South Bay. So I would encourage you to include some of that information as you move forward with your air quality study. But again, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Andy. I didn't know about that. I might follow up with you and see if you have a specific contact person I can reach out to. Thanks.
Okay, going to Amy Heim from our Port of San Diego.
Yes,
Amy?
hi. Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
I just wanted to acknowledge the work that you're doing and say thank you very much on behalf of my teammates that are working with you. We've had nothing but positive feedback from the team back into the organization, and we really appreciate your hard work. As you know, we're working on updating our own air quality plans in the area, and we are working in lockstep with you to be on the exact same timeline. So we're actually bringing updates to our own board in November, and we'll be continuing to work with you from that point forward. So thank you. I appreciate your hard work.
Yeah, thanks so much. The Port has been an invaluable partner in this work. It's really been very, very helpful. So thanks to your whole team.
Any other comments or questions for Kathy? Okay, seeing or hearing none. Kathy, thank you so much for participating in our working group, and good luck as you move forward.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. If you all have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, I'm moving on to item number 8, which is the 2021 Regional Plan Vision with Colleen Clemens leading the way. The Women's Transportation Seminar Woman of the Year. No pressure, Colleen, no pressure.
Oh, you're the best, Gary. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. So thank you everyone for extending your meeting today so we could incorporate this workshop on the regional plan. And as the chair mentioned in his remarks at the beginning of the meeting, we have multiple working groups at Sandag, 11, 12, 13 of them. And all of them, except for you all, will be meeting on Wednesday during the day to do this workshop. And then we're going to convene all the working groups together. I hope I have it right. Maybe it's Thursday, but then we're going to convene everyone at the end of the day so that you can all share information about your thoughts on the big picture vision. So what we're going to do, we have a video that really is a compilation of what has been presented to our Sandag Policy Advisory Committees and to the Board of Directors. And that video is about 15 minutes. And then what we want to do is really have all of you put your working group lens on. And through that lens, provide us with your feedback. Because we're at the stage now where we've put out this big picture vision. And now we're putting that vision into a plan. And the plan is more than just the vision. It includes a lot of policy recommendations about land use. It includes policy direction even to the state on things that we need to work with the state of California on. If we're gonna say, repurpose some of the highway lanes one way or another, things like that. How we even manage curb space on our local streets and roads. So that gets to the point the city manager was raising. How we're looking at all of these things at multiple different levels. And I thought it might be helpful. I was looking at what the charter of the working group is. And a lot of times we revisit this on just an annual basis, but I wanted to remind you that I'm just reading this from your charter. The San Diego Regional Military Working Group provides a collaborative forum for the various branches of the military and Sandag to address areas of mutual interest, including growth management, habitat, transportation, housing, water, energy, and other related topics. And that's why really all of us are here. So it's the military installations, Sandag, and when we say Sandag, we're also talking about our member agencies who border military installations. So with all of that in mind, I am going to turn it over to our expert technical staff here to show the video. And then as soon as the video concludes, Mr. Chairman, you and I can work through a facilitated discussion to get input from the military working group members here, thinking through your lens, your role. So thank you.
We've got no sound as far as I can tell.
Yeah, no sound.
What about now? Let me know if you guys can hear it.
Cannot hear it.
No sound.
What about now?
One of the most important things Sandag does is develop
Good.
a plan, a long-term blueprint for how we Colleen Clemenson, Planning Director for the San Diego Association of Governments. Today, I want to show you the vision for SANDAG's 2021 Regional Transportation Plan, a vision for a transportation system that's faster, fairer, and cleaner. One of the most important things SANDAG does is develop a regional transportation plan, a long-term blueprint for how we will grow and how we will get around. We update this plan every 4 years to account for factors like population growth, economic trends, new laws, and evolving technologies. We took a different approach this time, making this one of our most transformational updates ever. Historically, SANDAG planned to improve traffic by widening roadways where we have bottlenecks and adding transit in the same corridors, hoping people would use it. Now we have much better data about where people are coming and going, and new technologies have widely expanded our transportation options. Laws about air quality and protecting our environment have been strengthened, and the need to address social inequities has become urgent. And technology has matured to a point where we can dramatically improve what we have and realistically plan for new ways of getting around. Clearly, we must also account for the COVID-19 pandemic and all the unknowns it has created. At the same time, we must recognize the fundamental things that will remain the same. Our major residential areas, schools, universities, and job centers aren't going anywhere. 90% of what is here now will be here in the foreseeable future. And when the pandemic passes, we will have traffic congestion again. We are already seeing this, even though a good percentage of people are telecommuting. We need to be thinking for the long term, and we will need this vision. Our planning team spent the last 15 months pouring through data, reviewing mountains of public input, and researching the latest transportation innovations. What we have developed is a vision for a transportation system that's faster, fairer, and cleaner. Faster by reducing traffic congestion and speeding up transit, connecting our communities. Fairer by investing in a system that increases affordable transportation choices. And cleaner by ensuring we meet state and federal environmental standards. Today, our roadways are inefficient. Multiple studies have shown that adding lanes actually increases traffic. Within a matter of months, traffic jams return. We need to address the inequality in the transportation system as it relates to low income, minority and senior populations, and ensure that all of our residents have equal access to things like high quality jobs, education, and healthcare. There are many legislative mandates that must be met. State and federal laws call for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and reducing air pollution. New targets set by the state require the San Diego region to reduce the number of miles traveled per person. These laws require SANDAG to meet the targets through transportation and land use solutions. By getting people to walk, bike, share rides in carpools, van pools, on transit, and making shorter trips. The newest state law, Senate Bill 743, requires that any transportation project that increases vehicle miles traveled, such as roadway widenings, must mitigate for that increase with a project that does not increase vehicle miles traveled, such as public transit, walking, and biking. We have some big challenges and some big goals. How do we get the job done? With the 5 big moves: flexible fleets, mobility hubs, transit leap, complete corridors, and the next operating system. 5 interreliant strategies that, when linked together, can link our transportation system in a way never done before. Together, they provide a new and powerful way of addressing the region's transportation problems that we've struggled with for decades. Transit rarely gets us within walking distance of where we want to go. We change that using the 5 big moves. Flexible fleets solve that problem by providing connections that extend the reach of transit, vastly increasing the number of people who could use transit as a viable commuting option. Mobility hubs connect communities across the region so that people will have an alternative to having to own a car. And for transit to be competitive with the automobile, it needs to be fast. This is what we call Transit Leap, commuter rail, light rail, and the next gen rapid, all providing convenient, safe, affordable transportation. Complete corridors allow us to use technology to organize and manage our corridors and to streamline traffic in a more manageable way and provide equitable access to meeting our daily needs. The glue that really holds these strategies together is technology. We call it the Next OS. It allows us to optimize the overall system by wirelessly connecting vehicles, coordinating traffic signals, and providing real-time information for our travelers. This technology was not as mature a decade ago, but technology will dominate the future of transportation. Together, the 5 big moves are 5 interdependent strategies that give us a real shot at solving our transportation problems. That is what is so brilliant about this vision. The vision for the 2021 regional plan is a long-term investment in the region's future, developed through data, analysis, and input from you. The well-being of our region, this wonderful place we call home, depends on us to make meaningful changes today.
Okay. Thanks, Colleen. Okay, before we go to the working group members of the public, the members of the public want to speak on this item. Item number 8, which is the regional transportation vision. I see no okay, no members of the public. Okay, I'm going to the working group members. Blair King, please.
Thank you, Colleen. Can you talk to us about funding, where we're going with funding, and also along with that, just again, the issue of micro projects, sitting in that $25 to $35 million range that improve mobility right at the gate interface between the community and the federal installation.
Excellent question. So funding, we estimate this vision at $177 billion to build it out, the whole system. And just by comparison, the most recent plan approved by the SANDAG Board of Directors is around $130 billion. So it's a lot more investment, but it really helps to solve our transportation needs. Now, what does that mean? We anticipate that of that 177 billion, a third of that would come from local funds, a third would come from state funds, and a third would come from federal funds. And we've roughly in the San Diego region been able to get $2.50. So we've been a little bit more of a return on every dollar spent. So what we're really talking about is 2/3 of the funding would come from outside sources to the region. Now, how would we come up with that 1/3? That's the big question. And we're right now looking at what that funding strategy might include. It would require the SANDAG Board of Directors to put together something for the voters to consider. And most likely that would be in 2022 or sometime after that. Potentially a sales tax measure. When you hear Hassan Akrada, my boss, talk about it, he thinks somewhere in the range of a 1 cent sales tax. And that's what they've done in LA. That's what they've done in Seattle and elsewhere to really fund a truly functioning, compelling transit option. Okay, so there's that piece. Now, I don't know if we want to take any questions on that, and then we can talk about the second question you asked, which I think sound like, hey, you've got a multi-billion-dollar project here, or there's some cheaper $25 or $30 million projects that we can do sooner, faster, quicker, that start to relieve some of our issues today. So we're not waiting for the big, shiny, super expensive projects. And not putting words in your mouth, Blair, I think that's your second question.
Yes, the idea again that we have issues right at the gates right now, and some of these we hate to see just people being able to get more efficient from Murphy Canyon to the toll plaza, and then 45 minutes to go a mile.
Yeah. And so what you're talking about there really gets into the phasing. So how do we phase what and when in the plan? So I think everyone here knows we don't just collect all the money and wait until 2050 and then build everything. We kind of have to figure out how do we sort of pay as we go and what do we do when. So now, right now, we are working on phasing. And so in probably near the end of this calendar year, early next year, we'll actually be able to share some of those details. So if you want to make a suggestion right here and now from that perspective, you know, these are the kinds of things we want to hear from the working group.
Well, I guess one of the things that just, you know, we dodged a bullet in Coronado. We had, at least my opinion, there was a local group of citizens that were circulating a petition with regard to some limitations on how traffic would be moved. Our modeling for the cities was that it would have been harmful for the overall system, but just in Coronado. But that's the kind of thing that, unless we show that there's some progress being made to relieve local traffic congestion, I'm afraid we're going to end up with a citizens initiative that is just, we're getting more and more citizens engaged. I don't know if it's because people have time to, because they're home with COVID, or they realize that you're, point out in the video, the traffic is lighter right now and it's going to return. And so at the micro level, what are we going to do? But cool, and thank you again for your presentation, Big Five Moves. When I've heard them, they've been these big shiny objects, obviously a huge pivot to what Sandag has done in the past. But then I get concerned about these smaller $25 to $35 million projects that we think would really help at the local level, but just may never be executed because of the size of the elephant that's being proposed and how much it's going to take to eat the whole thing up.
Thank you. Good comment. And by the way, we're tracking all these comments so that we have a compilation of what we hear from all of you today. So I'll turn it back to the chair to entertain other comments, questions from the group.
Other comments? I have my 2 cents, but I'll wait until everybody else weighs in. If anybody else wants to weigh in, comments or questions from any other working group members. Jeff Hunt. Jeff Hunt.
Hi, Colleen. Thanks for the presentation. How do I address the concern that I hear in North County so much that, and I'm paraphrasing, that North County is being left out? The focus is on South County, the focus is on transit, the focus is on multimodal, while North County, and as a city planner, I may not agree with this, mind you. I'm just, it's a conversation in our community. But the feeling that in North County, auto-centric solutions may be more appropriate, and those are being left out of the equation. How do I address that in a public meeting if that question comes up?
It's an excellent question. Two things, I think, just to provide you with some information, Jeff, and we're happy to sit down with you and your team and share more detail if you think that would be helpful. So first of all, when you look at North County, we actually have that North County corridor study underway. And we did not show this in the video, but we have some analysis that was done specifically looking at North County, what's been in the plan in the past and what the vision includes. So if you look at the plan that's on the books today, what would be part of the plan for North County is one managed lane in each direction on State Route 78, fixing the connections, so getting the connections into 5 and 15 on either end, and speeding up the Sprinter. When you look at what the data tells us about what the needs are, it tells really a different story. First of all, one managed lane in each direction really doesn't work very well because you end up with so many people going in and out of that lane that it creates more traffic congestion. So what we're looking at are 2 managed lanes in each direction on the 78. Secondly, the largest employment center in North County is along Palomar Airport Road. That needs to be connected with some sort of high-speed transit, connecting in with the Sprinter and making that a full loop that also connects in with the high-speed transit in the Losan corridor. That coupled with mobility hubs, which are these denser areas that exist in our communities, and focusing our growth and development in those areas, along with flexible fleets, which really help close that first last mile and are probably some of the best solutions for our more suburban locations. One of the things that we've learned from the data is that so many people in North County are getting on the 78 and just going 1 or 2 miles. They're not going from the 15, they're not necessarily going from Escondido to Oceanside. Some of the trips are, and that could be accommodated by higher speed transit. But those north-south trips are something that really could be addressed with flexible fleets. So that might be a really long answer. I'd be happy to share a little bit more information with you, Jeff. But if you look at every one of the things that have been in our plan in the past, we've really bolstered that even further.
I appreciate that, Colleen, and I didn't expect a solution today, but at least we have the conversation going. I appreciate your thoughts.
Okay.
Other comments, questions for Colleen? Okay, my 2 cents, Colleen. The old challenge is going to be demographics too. We have 3.3 million people living in this region today. Sandag forecasts about another 500,000 to the year 2050. Today, before the pandemic, we were getting almost 100,000 visitors a day into the San Diego region. So the strong point about this is it's a regional network transportation plan. The weak point about it, it's a regional network transportation plan. So when you get the 25 policymakers sitting around the big table at Sandag, God love them, their natural tendency is, what's in my backyard? So that's the strength, the strength of MPOs and the weakness of MPOs. So I guess the challenge, I guess, for staff is to present to the policymakers, how can they make sure they're following through on the first Transnet, the second Transnet, at the same time, balance the plan to make sure we enhance mobility for goods movement as well as people, and balancing out that, we all live, work, and play in different places. So it's a tremendous undertaking. I salute Sandag, I'm biased, for trying to have that regional perspective, but it'll be interesting to see what policies, what public policies, what projects, programs, and services are actually come down to the final plan. And at the same time, we're under the state mandate to meet air quality standards. So that pull and tug, I always worry about, can we have a decent plan with the political realities that we have to deal with. I'm saying this as politely as I can. So it's always been in the past, when it gets right down to it, especially when we go back to the voters and ask them for some of their hard-earned tax dollars, we promise them lessening traffic congestion. And for me, it always comes down, if I step back in my heart of hearts, I look at the reality, we can come up with the best vision, implement the best plan. And what I think we're doing is we're making worsening mobility less worse, if that makes sense in English. But that's my 2 cents for what it's worth. But I salute Sandag for trying to pull this all together. Hopefully by this time next year, we'll have a much better sense of the projects, programs, and services that'll be included in there. And hopefully we can get enough people, we can coalesce enough of the San Diego region to get behind the vision. Any other comments or questions? Thanks, Colleen, as usual.
Thank you,
You're very,
everybody.
Okay. Okay, moving on to item number 9, grant funding opportunities. I'm going to turn this over to April to talk about grant funding opportunities. April.
Hi, everyone. So as you know, after the military multimodal access strategy, we decided to have this standing item for grant funding opportunities. And right now, the upcoming grant opportunity that I want everyone to think about is the next Caltrans planning grants called for projects. Right now, they just released the draft guidelines for everyone to review, and I think comments are due at the end of this month. And the applications or the call for projects are anticipated in January of 2021. A lot of the programs are very consistent with what we're used to seeing every year. But if you are interested in partnering with Sandag for any of the strategic planning projects, please let me know, and I'll coordinate directly with our grants team. Thanks, Gary.
Good. Okay. Questions of April? Kathy, I see you, Kathy. Kathy Keehan.
Thank you. I just want to take an opportunity to mention the Air District also has opened a call for projects for our heavy duty mobile source emission reduction incentive program. So if you have on-road trucks, off-road equipment, any of that kind of thing that we were just talking about, maybe transitioning to zero emission equipment, we're taking applications for those sorts of projects through December 4th is the last day to apply for that program. Just wanted to let you know about that.
Thank you for that information. Okay, other comments, questions? Okay, moving on to the last item. We're doing real well time-wise, guys. I appreciate it. Topics for next meeting. If you look at it, I'm going to turn this over to April here in a second. Working with April, I've laid out a series of dates. We probably won't meet all those times, but I was just trying to block your time. It's a lot easier, as we all know, to cancel meetings than to try to get on your calendar with a meeting spot. So that's been laid out in the agenda for potential future meetings during the calendar year 2021. April, I'll start with you, then go around the horn. Any other topics or any other questions for the good of the order?
No, I don't have any.
Okay. Any other of the working group members have anything else for the good of the order? Okay, see a lot of head shaking now. Good. Okay. Okay, thank you for your time. That concludes the meeting. And our next meeting right now is scheduled for the 4th of January, 2021, when we'll be in a new year and a new era. So we'll see how things go. Everybody stay safe and get out there and vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.